Hello all, Timothy here. I wanted to do a spontaneous sharing addressing some of the ongoing astrology, namely the moon's nodes aligning with the nodes of Neptune, and how this pertains to our own spiritual journey, the evolution of our whole collective, as well as really speaking upon the nature of our souls. And so to begin with, what am I referring to here is the nodes of the planets. So here's the position, the current positions of the planetary nodes. Just as the moons have nodes, every planet also has nodes, which is simply the points at which the planets pass that magical plane of the ecliptic. Now, the planetary nodes move very slowly over great periods of time. So as we see, the nodes of Neptune are currently on the Leo-Aquarius axis, and they have been for around the last 1,000 years and will be for around the next 1,500 years on the Leo-Aquarius axis. And so the planetary nodes show very great, broad brushstrokes of our collective evolution over great periods of time, as well as how each planetary function is evolving in our own birth chart. Now, if we take a look at the current planetary transits, what we can see is that currently the moon's north node is at 12 degrees of Leo, and this weekend is going to move to 11 degrees of Leo because the moon's nodes move clockwise backwards through the zodiac. And so the moon's north node is coming up to the north node, or I'm sorry, yes, the north node of Neptune at 10 degrees of Leo. Now, the planetary nodes have been fairly recently pioneered in modern astrology, first by Dane Rudhyar, but then particularly by Jeffrey Wolf Green, the founder of evolutionary astrology. And again, he explains how these nodes reveal our collective journey of evolution throughout great periods of time. The nodes of Neptune will pertain to our whole world's collective spiritual evolution. And now, as the moon's nodes are aligning with the nodes of Neptune, there is a great opportunity for us to really align our own personal soul's evolutionary journey with our deeper spiritual unfolding and the direction of evolution that's happening for the entire collective at this time. And so, what is Leo? Well, Leo is where everything's going this year with the moon's north node transiting Leo. The transiting moon's node is always telling us where the collective evolution is going at this time. And so we're going really into Leo, which is ruled by the sun. And wherever the sun is dancing this year, it's like we're really mastering and evolving and moving in the direction of that zodiac sign. For example, right now, the sun is in Aries, and in the next couple of weeks is coming up to Uranus. It's very much an individuating time of finding our own direction, our own purpose that gives us a sense of meaning and satisfaction, to feel confident in our own direction and have the capability to follow our own soul's desires. Well, each and every individual soul is unique. This is an important aspect of evolutionary astrology. And what we'll be talking about is the nature of Leo in the higher octave that allows us to embrace and celebrate our individual nature. Now, this pertains to our whole world's collective spiritual evolution, because obviously our spiritual understanding as a world changes and evolves throughout time. Where Neptune's south node is located can tell us a little bit about what that story generally can be. And of course, this is a massive, signature that many millions and millions of souls will have this in their own charts. And so there's many different interpretations. But very generally, one of the collective spiritual understandings that we're bringing in is Aquarius, which is a wisdom of interconnectivity. We are all interconnected. We're all part of a universal human consciousness. And for many centuries, there's been this understanding that we connect to spirit and God through disassociating from our ego, from our individuality, from our soul, from our story, and by coming into the sense of all is one, all is interconnected, and there's been generally a theme of disassociation. Now, the south node of any planet, just like the moon's south node, is not all bad. It's the signature of the past. And there's many good things that are coming in from this, such as the wisdom that we are all one. We are all one tribe. We're all inherently a part of a universal human nature that we can all share and identify with. Those are all wonderful, positive truths and wisdom. And yet there's also areas in that where we can get stuck, which is what the south node of any planet or the south node of the moon can also be a signature of. What we're familiar with, where we are therefore having a tendency to get stuck or to feel limited to, such as the understanding that we should leave this world and leave our body and leave our individual story and nature because it's all irrelevant. This can be some of the disassociation that is connected to Aquarius. Everything in life is an illusion. And so we get in touch with the truth by disconnecting with all of this temporary nature that's going on, by returning to the singular underlying flat line of consciousness. And where that becomes a problem is when that gets turned into berating or looking down or shaming our own ego. And it's important to understand what the ego is, what the soul is, particularly in evolutionary astrology. Because evolutionary astrology is all about looking into, understanding, and really giving affirmation to the soul's nature to continue its own individual journey of evolution. And as an astrologer, what I really love so much about having the opportunity to do this work is I get to honor each and every individual soul that approaches me for a reading. And that's what the potency of a birth chart can do, is honoring the individual soul. And so the soul has a unique and individual nature. No two souls are alike. This is an important understanding in evolutionary astrology. And so every soul inherently has shared qualities. That is the nature of spirit, or the nature of our own soul. And the nature of each and every one of our souls is our souls are eternal, our souls are inherently blissful, and our souls are inherently full of knowledge or awareness. Sat Chit Ananda, the threefold nature of our soul, which we all share. In the understanding of evolutionary astrology, our soul remembers all of our past lives and contains it in our own unconsciousness. And so our souls are incredibly deep, incredibly learned, and incredibly wise, despite our conscious awareness not always being in tune with those deeper dimensions. And so in Hinduism, the individual soul is sometimes called the Atman, whereas God's called the Paramatman, or the individual soul can be called the Jiva. And the Jiva is not a problem. We are not trying to eliminate our Jiva. And this is where it's important to understand that we should not be feeling the need to carelessly or relentlessly berate ourselves or other persons' egos. I see this as being one of the biggest issues in our current collective evolution, and this is reflected in the nodes of Neptune, because it can lead to us wanting to disconnect from our human nature or sacrifice our human nature as if our God-given nature was inherently flawed, or there's a problem with what we were born into, which is a body, which is a unique vehicle, which is an ego. This is Leo. Leo is one of the most human signs, dealing with our personal subjective nature, our raw emotional expression, and our own story, our history, What it is that we really relate to and identify with is Leo, and this is our ego. And is there a problem with our own identification with our own story? No, there's no problem with this at all. In fact, in practicing astrology, it's incredibly important that we embrace this. And a huge part of the work I do is in guiding and assisting others to embrace their own individuality through simply reaffirming and reapproving, hey, this is who you are, go to the beat of your own drum, be the soul that you are, love yourself, celebrate yourself, because this is what you're meant to be, and this is what you're meant to do. This is your soul's expression. And every single soul's expression is unique, and every single individual's story is unique. We obviously come from a diversity of different past situations, history, experiences, so on and so forth. And all of the above is extremely relevant to the evolution of our own soul. And so we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater along our spiritual journey and discard our story and discard our ego or discard our own self-identification, which is extremely important. Because through being an individual soul, through being an ego, we have the opportunity to celebrate spirituality in a beautiful way. As every beautiful symphony or orchestra has within it a diversity of unique instruments. And if we were missing any of those instruments, the symphony would not sound the same. This is talking to the Aquarius-Leo polarity and a healthy balance of both. Where we get too lost in Leo is where we think we're the only instrument in the orchestra or the only actor in the play. And that's distortion. That's not reality. When we think we're the only star in the universe, or if the sun thinks it's the only star in our solar system, obviously, or in the universe, then obviously there's problems. It is the only star in our solar system, though, so the sun can celebrate what it authentically is. And its own unique celebration of being the center of our solar system is realistic, is true. Similarly, each and every one of us has our own unique soul's flavor that is there to relish and celebrate. And this is not only important for us to do in order to be confident in our own self-expression in the world and life, but it's also really, really important on our own spiritual journey of evolution. The north node of Neptune is going into Leo. We will find our spiritual evolution inherently within our unique story and expression. And what this is partly saying as well is that each and every soul has a personal and unique spiritual way of connecting. So source is universal, spirit is universal. We all come out of and are born from source. And yet how we celebrate or sing our song or connect to God or spiritually practice or have a philosophical truth or orientation will be unique for every human being, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. You may have even noticed that many great gurus and highly evolved souls give out different spiritual stories, prescriptions, tools, methods, and recommendations. And there's nothing wrong with that either. That doesn't mean that some are better or worse, or that there's a hierarchy in terms of spiritual advancement going from some practices to other practices. No, we will all gravitate to different teachers with different flavors that is honoring our own unique taste. And so each and every soul, as we spiritually evolve, is also discovering within ourselves what our own personal connection to God and spirit is. And no two souls' personal connection will be exactly the same. And as we discover what our own soul's personal connection is, that will allow us to celebrate that connection, to embody that connection more and more and more, as far as I know, eternally, as we continue to spiritually evolve. So what does this mean? What is an example of this? Well, people tend to refer to God in different ways. People use different names Some people prefer goddess, some people prefer God, some people prefer no name, no personal connection. God is source, God is impersonal, is a personal flavor of connecting to God. And again, there's no right or wrong way. There's no better or worse way. But what's really, really important, and the purpose of sending out this message, is it's about you finding your way. You don't have to conform your way of spiritual connecting just because the meditation group or the spiritual instructor says, hey, this is how I connect, or this is what I was taught, so on and so forth. We can learn so much from everybody along each person's spiritual journey and take what's useful to us and leave the rest. And that's good, that's healthy, that's natural. But ultimately, when it comes to our connection to spirit and God, that becomes enormously personal and almost cannot be conveyed to another person when we really get into it. And so an example of this is some people may feel comfortable relating to God or spirit as like a kingly or queenly or a noble type of nature. Others may think of God the Mother or God the Father. Some souls choose to see God as a best friend. Some choose to see their relationship to God as a romance, as a dance. And this is personal per each and every individual soul. And as we celebrate and get into that personal connection, it gets tastier and tastier and more something to relish and enjoy. And that's how we get the personal connection. That's how we tune in. That's how we become channels. And that's how we become connected to God through our hearts. Leo rules the heart. When we fall in love with somebody, it requires a personal connection with them. In fact, a personal connection can make it sometimes easier to work with spirituality or to work with the planetary archetypes, for example, because you can relate to the planets personally. You can relate to spirit personally. And just like walking up to somebody and having a conversation or shaking their hand, it may sometimes make it easier to do so. But again, each and every soul will have a unique connection. For some people, they may feel that they feel connected to the heart in a more impersonal, or merging with the nothingness, or leaving, or it's this dissolving of barriers, or returning to the light, whatever it may be. The purpose of evolutionary astrology is to reaffirm us on our soul's evolutionary journey, which is ultimately returning to source. But how or what that means will be unique and different per each and every per each and every soul. And so it is important that we honor our soul's individual journey, that we honor the set of circumstances and experiences that we've already lived and survived, because each and every one of those is beautiful and relevant to the initiation of our own soul, as we continue to align with what our soul desires to grow in potential throughout this life. And so I've even named my own little business Rasalila Healing, which is an honoring of this nature. It's addressing a story involving Krishna, where he multiplies himself and is dancing with all of the gopis, all of his devoted followers. And the story goes that each and every soul dances with Krishna, goddess God, her, him, in a completely unique way. But each and every soul experiences that they are dancing with God alone. And this is a symbol of acknowledging each and every one of our relationships to God. It is unique. It is personal. It seems one-on-one. And it is different per each and every individual soul. And so we all have the huge opportunity, being gifted these tools of astrology, not only to use them to get through our day and to plan things and to understand what's around the corner and our own personality traits, but in honoring the jiva, in honoring the individual soul as an individual soul, having its own unique characteristics and traits, and having its own soul's evolutionary journey and truth. And by honoring one another and seeing and witnessing and relishing the beauty of each and every individual soul. When I look into another soul, I see their beauty, I taste their individual story, and I have an opportunity to taste it with them, to step in their shoes for a moment, and to celebrate their unique, beautiful connection with God, their soul story, and how all of that is initiating them into being the spiritual soul that they are, and being confident in sharing their own truth in their own God-given talents and gifts. The ego is a gift. The ego is not a mistake. The ego is not something that gets in the way when we have a healthy relationship to it. The ego is a gift from spirit. It is a gift from God. If we were to discard that gift, how would that be honoring God or nature? Rather, by honoring our ego, honoring our individual soul, we simultaneously honor God and the gifts that we have been given. So we can feel confident in radiating, in sharing, and giving our own self-expression to the world, back to the world, back to the collective. Just like every individual instrument giving itself to the collective symphony, that is the way that we find our soul's true potential and an opportunity to contribute it back to the collective, which is the journey of each of our soul's evolution, to find our own soul's unique service back to the collective, which is in fact the most satisfying alignment. That is the way to satisfaction, to bliss and truth, is aligning with our soul's individual nature and unique service back to the collective, which is always some service back to the spirit and all of humanity in some way, shape, or form. And so the moon's node, transiting the nodes of Neptune the next couple months, is a real profound opportunity to step into your heart, to step into that beautiful symphony and divine flow that effortlessly and easily possesses and animates us once we are authentically aligned with our individual soul's potential and truth. So thanks again for the opportunity to share these things, to put these messages out there, and to have the opportunity to connect with each and every one of you beautiful, uplifting, and inspiring souls. So thank you for existing, and thank you for being you. Wishing you all the best. Take care.